Is an election year a good reason to put your home buying or home selling plans on hold? We're going to look at some of the market data and let you know just how much effect an election year can have on the real estate market.
I keep it real, I keep it real, I keep it real, just keep it real.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Sam Hartman, keeping it real estate here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And 2024 is an election year. And no matter if you're blue or red or any shade of purple, the election can always bring some questions and uncertainty into consumers' lives and the state of the economy, and in my world, the state of the housing market. It's not uncommon to hear home buyers or home sellers say, well, it's an election year. You just never know what's going to happen. It creates that uncertainty, but we're actually going to dive into some data today that shows us what does happen, what historically happens, and historically what the effect is on the housing market. Now, remember, if you like this video, if you get valuable information from this video, go ahead and like it, share it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my next content to try and help bring clarity to the real estate world so that you can be informed and confident consumers, because that's what we're trying to do today. So with that being said, let's dive into some of the market data and what really truly happens in an election year. First and foremost, let's talk about the volume of home sales. And we actually do see a reduction in the number of homes that get listed and sold during an election year in those months leading up to an election year. So October and November usually sees about a 5% reduction in the total number of homes that get listed and sold during an election year. Now, typically, those months are about a 10% lower level on an annualized basis, but that is due to seasonality. Usually as we get out of the summer into the fall months, we start seeing new listings slow down. We start seeing the total volume of homes selling in those months to slow down. Those months are already at 9.8% reduction from an annual basis, but in an election year, historically speaking, we see that number reduced to a 15% reduction in home sales in October and November of election year. Now, here's the good news. Those home sales don't just go away. That is the market and the uncertainty and the questions of buyers and sellers in their heads, just deferring their decisions. Homes and home sales are not like a concert or a nice fancy dinner out. You know, if someone decides they're not going to go out to dinner tonight, the restaurant lost that sale. If someone thinks we're going to buy a house, we're just not going to buy a house this month, that sale is still there. It's just maybe deferred down the line. And so one of the ways we can see this data and kind of correlate this data over history is looking at how the market rebounds this year following an election year. And so really for 9 of the last 11 election cycles going all the way back to 1980, 9 out of 11 of those following years saw an increase in the number of home sales. So again, that tells you that those sales don't just go away. Those people are maybe just deferring their decisions for a later date. Now, is that the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? Personally, I think people, whether you're red or blue, whether your guy or your gal wins an election is going to dictate whether you feel better about your world and your economy or worse about your world or economy. So, how much of that really changes in the few months following an election, I don't know. But personally, if my family needs to move, if I've got pain points or pleasure points that I'm pursuing with the purchase of a new home, me personally, I'm not going to let kind of an arbitrary date or month of an election happening in November affect when I make that decision. When the time's right for us, we're going to pull the trigger. And so whether it happens in those October and November months or it happens the year following, like the data shows, I think that that is clearly just a personal decision for what is the best fit for you and your family. Now let's talk about home prices. Are home prices affected at all in an election year? And Ryan Lundquist, a housing analyst, actually says an election year doesn't alter the price trend that is already happening in the market. So to take current market trends into an election year and to think that that election year alone turns them on its head, whether Democrats win, whether Republicans win, no matter what happens during that election. To say that that is going to be enough to flip or turn a housing cycle or kind of the housing dynamics is just not true. So the housing demographics that we're facing here and today are going to persist going forward. So we expect kind of more of the same trends and not to be totally changed in any way, just simply due to an election. And so again, going back over history, over the last 8 election cycles, 7 of the last 8 presidential elections saw home prices increase. And I will give you one guess as to the year when those home prices decreased. That's right, 2008, the great financial crisis, housing boom and bust of 2008 is the only election cycle that saw housing prices fall in the following year. So are we expecting anything close or similar to a market dynamic like a once-in-a-lifetime financial crisis that was housing crash of 2008? I have done plenty of videos on that. I'm not going to rehash that information now. Plenty of people on the internet and with YouTube channels will tell you, yeah, we are expecting that, but I've made my point known. I've given you the data from my perspective of what I'm expecting. So if you're interested in some of that, go back to some of my old videos and see why today's market is nothing like the market of 2008. And third, and maybe most important on buyers' minds right now, if you're, kind of lingering in the wings, waiting to get into the market, is mortgage rates. And so looking at the historic data of mortgage rates, we actually see 8 of the last 11 presidential elections saw mortgage rates decrease. And we are already in kind of a market dynamic with very high expectations that interest rates are coming down in the very near future. The Federal Reserve has already made their indications known that in their September meeting coming up, that they will cut interest rates. And how that policy extends going forward into the future really dictates and depends on the status of inflation, the status of the job market, and the status of the economy as a whole. So we are expecting interest rates to start to come down, but we still might see some of that volatility in the near future. It might be a little bit of a bumpy road, just depending on how the economy responds. So what does this mean for you as a home buyer? What does this mean for you as a home seller? Is now the right time to make these life changes and make these decisions? I'm never going to give you a blanket answer, yes or no, to that, but it really depends on your personal life circumstances. And if the family is ready for a move, your finances are ready for a move, and your life is ready for a move, my advice is an election year, although a very small effect on the housing market, mainly in the form of the number of sales that happen in October and November, the general health of the housing market is unaffected by the election itself and an election year. So if you're ready to make those decisions and it's ready and time to start dipping your toes in the home buying or home selling water, make sure you reach out so that we can get you informed and educated on the process so we can get the ball rolling to achieve your goals. Again, I hope you found this information valuable. If you are blue or red or any shade of purple, this video is not meant to be political, but just look at how the political cycle plays a role in the housing market, because it is a common question and objection that I get from consumers out there about how does the election affect the housing market. And trust me, I know the election is on consumers' minds. People are putting a lot of major life decisions on hold because they feel the election can play such a role in that life decision. But also look at the data, get educated, get informed, and know whether it's going to affect that decision, because I don't want you holding back on making life's moves and moving life forward simply because we're in an election year. All right, that's it, guys. Thanks for keeping it real estate with me. Again, if you found this video helpful, like, comment, share this with a friend, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future content that could really help you be an informed consumer when it comes to the world of real estate.
I keep it real, just keep it real.